Hello, everybody. We are here at the Roll for Good weekend, I hope. I hope this is where you're watching this. And we are currently between games, and we thought we'd provide you with a little in-between chatter with Grant Howitt. The video's reversed. It's the person with Grant written underneath them.
Yeah, hi.
So hopefully you're watching this also right before we go live with Honey Heist, GM'd by me, and Honey Heist was written by Grant, and Grant has written lots of other things. So, as a little introduction to who he is and what he does, he writes a game a month, like an A4 side one-page a game, and also writes long-form games, Goblin Quest. Rowan, Rook and Deckard is his collaborative group that write Heart and Spire and games like that. He also is around on like Itch and Patreon if you want to go check those things out. He's also got a podcast called Hearty Dice Friends where he talks with his friend Chris. It is Chris, right?
Chris Taylor, yes,
Yeah.
He is the closest thing I have to a brother, including my half brother.
About dice games and things. We have thankfully got him here with us to chat today. So hello, Grant. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. I am hepped up on coffee. I'm one coffee ahead of where I normally am. So that explains why I'm talking faster than usual. But it's good. It is a bright, clear day here in East London, and I am enjoying the warmth.
Wonderful.
And getting ready to maybe just sort of casually splash my feet around in some games design this afternoon. So I'm quite looking forward to it.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I will say, for everybody watching, I recorded 10 minutes of this conversation with no audio. So if the beginning seems stilted, it's only because I'm trying to not say exactly what I said before.
Just say it again. I'll say the same thing. It's fine. They don't know. Whatever makes them give money, it's fine.
Speaking of which, if you're watching this, it's during a charity weekend. Please donate to Mind, the mental health charity, using the system we have in place here, our Tiltify. That would be really cool.
I'm really glad it's Mind. Mind's my favourite charity. I view it as a sort of insurance.
You used to be a video games writer and have a video games blog, but what drew you into RPGs? How did you end up being this RPG persona that you are today?
Oh, I like persona.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's got it. I used to be a games journalist. I used to write about video games for lifestyle mags and some newspapers and magazines back when they were a thing. And then, unfortunately, back in 2013, I moved all the way across the world to Sydney to follow my partner's career, in their career in journalism. And I lost all of my contacts and couldn't legally work. So that was a fun challenge. And after writing a novel on an iPad, which I can't recommend you do, really terrible plan. We didn't even have internet. I had to take it to a shop. I had to take it to a coffee shop to sort of upload it to make sure it didn't crash and die. It was really, it's unpublished as well as the other thing.
I once went to like a talk by Jacqueline Wilson, the children's author, at like a literature festival, and she writes everything on typewriter. And if she like makes a mistake, she's like, page gone, new page, which very brave.
That seems a bit try hard to me, but okay, Jacqueline. I mean, it's working out for her, right? That's fine. I'm not gonna. It's not for me, but I'm not going to besmirch her method.
Exactly. If it works, it works.
I couldn't legally work. I didn't have any contacts over there, so I started writing role-playing games. I'd been designing LARPs and like smaller games. Nothing which had really landed for a while, but we set up a Patreon together. Mary, my partner, helped me out with a lot of this, and they're 1/3 of our business as well. So we set up a Patreon, I started putting out some games, and it was from that we sort of ran up to Goblin Quest, which, Prue, I believe you've played in some capacity?
I haven't actually played Goblin Quest.
Okay, that's fine, you mentioned it earlier.
I
mentioned it in the previous
because,
thread.
I always look at it covetously.
Okay, cool. Which Prue would love to play.
I would love to play.
We did Goblin Quest, which was lovely. We got a surprising outpouring of support for that on Kickstarter because it was the Wild West back in those days. It was 2014. You could do whatever you liked. And since then, we carried on releasing games. We set up a business. We've developed a community around ourselves, and it's lovely. I get to write games with my best friend and my spouse.
Oh,
So,
you do have a really nice Discord. I am in your Discord.
right? Yes, I've seen you poking around.
Just occasionally lurking, occasionally talking about a one-page I might have played.
It's a nice friendly place, and we encourage people to come along and talk. We try and make it a safe space because having a community, as it turns out, is like crucial to success. Who knew? Right? You can't just design and avoid and throw books out of the window. You have to see what people think about them.
That is where Roll for Good came from. I started a UK and Europe TTRPG server because I was like, I keep getting notifications for live streams on American time and I am in bed. I want to hang out with some people in my side of the pond. And then it's only it started in November last year and we were like, we should do charity with it, and this is the product of that, and Diane's hard work, and our other coordinators as well.
Okay, I was gonna say, not just me. I'm 1/3 of the coordination side, and there's a bunch of community members who are pitching in on this with art and moderation support and everything. So it is truly a community effort. I love that. Shall we jump to the next question?
Yeah, hit me with some questions. Lay some questions.
Yes. All right. A question which I'm sure you've never heard before. No. So, on that point of gaining traction, gaining success, and being able to move forward, there's that notion of, I suppose we should just name it, the imposter syndrome. That whole thing of, am I really good enough to call myself X thing? Am I actually enough of this or that or whatnot? And basically the question of at what point you thought, I'm comfortable saying I am an RPG designer and writer. That is me.
Within minutes of writing my first RPG, because I have the confidence of a largely unremarkable cis white man. Which allows me to carry myself with a certain amount of swagger, which has been useful in terms of succeeding. But also, no one is going to benefit from you, the listener, the viewer, anyone, not saying you're a designer, not saying you're a game designer, not saying you're a writer. The only people who are going to benefit from that are people who are existing game designers who want to keep you out. So fuck them. If you are designing games, whether it's for a living or not, because capitalism sucks, you are a game designer. You are designing games. It is a thing you have done. And if you want to define yourself professionally as that, if you want to define your identity around that, by all means, go for it. Now, I will say, as a man who does define his professional identity around games design, when it doesn't go well, you've got nothing else left to fall back on. So that's quite challenging. I'm going to say about 4 times a year. Not where the imposter syndrome kicks in and you're like, oh God, what am I doing? What on earth is this? I can't write the toffee. This is terrible. I also get imposter syndrome whenever I watch anyone play one of my games. So I look forward to feeling it through the Honey Heist playthrough.
You've watched me play Your Pig at a Wedding before. We loved it. I loved it. Pig at Wedding was amazing.
I absolutely adore it when people, I think, because I seem to remember at the start, like you were saying, oh, like we might get the rules wrong or something, and I'm really it's like, no, please get the rules wrong. Please don't use the rules I wrote, because if someone uses the rules that I wrote and it kind of goes wrong and there's kind of a dramatic clunk, I'm like, oh no. Oh, I'm gonna crawl into a hole and die. Whereas if they're just having a fun time talking about pigs at weddings, fine, yeah, and I helped with that, you know? And that's nice, but yeah. When you have designed your first game, when you are designing your first game, call yourself a game designer. It doesn't matter.
This is a kind of follow-on. So, you know, you're basically this kind of king of one-page RPGs now. I would say you have the most well-known one-page RPGs currently.
After I destroyed John Harper, yeah.
Oh no.
No.
And sometimes people might even refer to a game of that style as like a Grant Howitt game,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's not a game he wrote. Is that strange? Is that cool?
Yes, and yes.
Yes and yes.
Someone, I think it was a couple of years ago, was on Twitter, and someone referred to the Grant Howitt period of one-page RPGs. That was strange. That was quite confronting for me, to be like, oh no, actually there was a bit where you unwittingly defined a movement because you wanted some money. That was quite, like, at no point am I setting out to try and define a movement, as it were, or to say, hey, like this is what one-page RPG should be. But I think one thing which I'm really proud of in doing them is that they're very easy to grasp. Not necessarily easy to run. I think people think they're easy to run, and in fact they're exhausting, and I can't recommend it. You should run D&D or something else. But they are very easy to grasp, and so it's like, hey, you're all bears and you're on a heist and you're going to go rob Honeycomb. Cool, okay. And so new GMs can go, oh yeah, sure, I'll give it a go. And they start playing, and their first experience of play is this anarchic, freewheeling, creative, fun thing, rather than, oh, hang on, I've got to look up the thickness of this door on the door chart. And so I'm really glad that I've been able to empower people to just have a go, both at running games and also at making games. All the games I've released one page are under Creative Commons, so people are free to hack them if they want. God, they can sell them if they want. I can't legally stop them. But
they do, in fact. I don't know if you know this. So for the, oh no, I've triggered something. No, I don't know if you know this. If you're familiar with the dark matter setting.
Oh yeah.
There's the Wismo Havoc thing, which is basically a one-page thing of you are a weird little Fey-powered arcane device in space causing havoc.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Sorry, they can just sell the games that I wrote. They can just print and sell those. I don't need to change any of the words even. So if you want a quick buck, don't do that because it isn't working for me. I think that it's the fact that they're lo-fi, the fact that they're all sort of illustrated by hand and often written out by hand in the early stages. I think that gave people the confidence to go, oh, actually, yeah, I can design games. Yeah, I can write games. Yeah, I can start doing this. And that's made me really happy, especially seeing like young people, seeing kids play and write the games, seeing teachers take them to schools and use them as learning tools. That feels really good to hear. Like, oh yeah, we had four different tables playing your game in a French high school. Like, okay, great, wonderful. I'm glad I could do that. Have fun. So yeah, it's lovely, really.
Yeah, the first thing I ever hacked was a Lasers and Feelings hack. My friends were like, I really want to play a really mundane RPG as our D&D characters, so I wrote them something called People and Jobs, and you are in an office and you just have to do office stuff, and it's like these elves that have killed liches being like, oh yeah, the photocopy is broken. I
love office mentality. I think it's hilarious.
Oh boy.
I wasted a lot of my best years working in pensions. I don't understand what pensions are or do, but I used to work in a call center for pensions, so I find office mundanity and politics quietly hilarious. So thank you for writing that. That's great.
Maybe you should publish that.
Yeah, maybe.
There it comes again. Shall we move on to the next question?
Yeah, fire away.
Or do we just ramble for? No, let's go with the questions. We actually had them prepared after all. So the next thing that popped out to both myself and Prue is actually you tend to have a lot of animal-based one-pagers. So we've brought up Honey Heist and Pig at a Wedding already. Like, is there something particular that just draws you to animals causing chaos? Is there something about it that just really seems has this magnetism to you more so than humanoid?
Absolutely. Role-playing games are an exercise in abstraction, in abstracting the whatever feelings we actually have, whatever things we're actually working through, and then giving us diving suits of identities to go and explore and poke around in a fictional world. And if you're playing people are difficult. We're all people. We know how complex we are. Whereas an animal, not a real animal, but a sort of cartoony one, which stands on its hind legs and talks and is smoking a cigar, great. fine. No complexity there. You'll note as well, like, in addition to animals, an awful lot of my games are about agents of chaos in a straight-laced world. So Pig at a Wedding, for example, is about trying to sneak a pig into a wedding without being discovered until it's time to reveal the pig, which is ridiculous. There's no sense in bringing a pig into a wedding, but because the game's all about this, you can sort of wrap your head around it and get into it.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be an animal. Everyone wants to pretend to be an animal in some capacity. I think I would like to be a manatee. They seem
good choice.
They seem like real chill dudes. They have no natural predators because they eat so much grass. Why not?
I think I'd love to be a whale. Similar hat. You're just a big. Imagine being that big.
Just that big.
Crazy.
You're great. You can sing. You know, what's not to like? You look great. And like I will say, whales, manatees, there is a class of animal which needs to be just humanoid enough to play. And like opposable fingers in some capacity are very good. Yeah, thumbs are great, which is why raccoons are popular.
Yeah, there you go.
Raccoons perennially popular.
I got briefly paralyzed by indecision because we were on the topic of what animal to be, and this is something I've wrangled with since I was a young child, and I'm just sitting here thinking, but also that, but this, but also that, and it's not happening. I can't choose.
That's the glory of role-playing games. Everyone wants to be an animal, and also everyone wants to do a little bit of crime.
Oh, yeah.
We can all feel the yoke of the oppressor chafing against our necks, and not like
we can have a little crime as a treat.
As a treat, yeah, and not like a big serious crime or a crime that really hurts anyone you care about. But crimes against Tories and the like, fine, absolutely fine. There is a recurring theme of like people who have too much money or are Tories or are generally sort of those are the villains. And so you get to really sort of push them over in the dirt, because in reality, we are ground down under the heel of their capitalist boot every goddamn day. So I think it's nice to have a little bit of, sort of, what if I was a raccoon and I got to drive around and I'd stolen a car? So that's nice.
Next question is, what is the role-playing game that maybe means the most to you that you've created or contributed to? Or if that is like a little bit of a vague question, I would also be curious to know what like mechanic that you've invented are you like proudest of, and you're like, yeah, that one is really cool. I'm really glad I managed to turn that into an RPG.
Okay. I think the mechanic is I've created quite a lot of stuff that I'm proud of. I think the most like the game which is most important to me, like career-wise or just in terms of my own development, was Spire, because that was us saying, here is a fantasy world, go and explore it. And it was the first time which I felt confident enough to say, here is a setting, here is a place. And up until that point, I felt like whenever I tried to write a role-playing game with a setting in, it was like being like, oh, let me tell you about my 12th level paladin. Like it was like getting trapped in a pub with someone telling you about a LARP you're not in. And just that sort of grinding sense of like, I'm intruding here, I don't want to bother you. But we were confident with Spire, we wrote it, and then that's spun out into Heart, it's spinning out into sequel games after that. That's gorgeous. The mechanic which I've written, which I'm proudest of, is the principle of not failing forward but succeeding backwards. Which is a game I wrote called Nice Marines. And like it's not a particularly outlandishly original idea, but it's the first time I used it properly, I think, in Nice Marines. And the idea is that you have a very narrow window of success. On this side there's failure, on this side there's success with collateral. And it's about like leading a parade so hard you accidentally destroy a city. That and sort of like, and then being told that, and like, okay, well, how do we put those two things together? But I love the idea of succeeding so hard you fail in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was useful working on Paranoia when I did the redesign of that.
I didn't know you were involved in the redesign of Paranoia.
I was one of the writers on the 2016 project.
Nice. That is one of my favorite games.
Oh, thank you. I think you're in the minority. An awful lot of people are upset that we made it playable.
How dare you?
we made it fun for everyone rather than just the GM. I really like the setting of Paranoia. I think it's clever and fun, and it gives you a lot of room to poke fun at the world, which is what we did with it. But I think that the previous mechanics were expressly satirical of role-playing games, and unfortunately, while they were a fine satire, you had to play it, which meant that I couldn't just sit back and watch this thing not working. I had to then play with these mechanics, which were deliberately obtuse, which just didn't sit right with me. But yeah, we designed it, we redesigned it, we made it much more happy clappy, everyone joining in and making things up, which I think is better.
Speaking of happy and joyful, sort of the final question. Yes, first of all, smiles on. I don't know why I mean, we're on happiness is mandatory, so in the past year, so there has been a massive surge to taking games online that were previously in person and using that as a way, we're talking specifically of course about tabletop hobbies and such, using that as a way to maintain friendships, social circles, communities, finding new ones. As was mentioned, I think it was mentioned, or unless it was mentioned in the recording that didn't have audio, Prue and myself only met through this Discord community about 6 months ago, and here we are making a charity event happen and stuff. And it's been a weird and wild ride that, despite everything in the world, this hobby has managed to keep people together, bring people together. So you write and develop a lot, but on the actual playing side, on the social side, what has the past year been like for you? Have you actually had time to sit down, play, and just keep that connection with friends? Has that been something that's helped you?
So I used to have a regular Monday night game at my house. Everyone would come over, we'd play whatever, really, an excuse to hang out, and we cut that was like we cancelled that for the foreseeable future in February, which was, we did not foresee the future would last that long. But I was immediately, like, upon lockdown hitting the UK, and like we've been hit pretty hard by the pandemic. Like the mismanagement's been pretty grueling to sit through. But in those initial stages when everyone was more scared than bored, I think, as they were now, I immediately started 3 games just out of panic. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I revved up an old game I had. I started an online game with some friends of my partners, and then on the Discord, I was like, "All right, what's to play D&D?" Yeah! On my podcast Discord, and so set up 3 games, and I lasted for about 2 months before I realised that actually this was a huge amount of labour, both in terms of prep and emotions, and actually running the game, and I got burned out pretty quickly. And so what I've started to do is, 1, retreat into sort of a hermit-like existence where I don't speak to humans, which was fine for a bit. It was useful, but what I've been doing, I'm trying to do more, is set up games with, like, just recruit 4 people who I haven't played with before, who I want to play with, and be like, right, we're going to have 5 sessions of a game, and then we're going to go somewhere else. So last year I ran a game of the Mecha Hack, which is a hack of the Black Hack, which is a really lovely OSR game. Huge recommend for it. And I just had some people who I'd never really played games with before, a lot of them, and we hung together and we made up a world. We had this really big, exciting game, and it was 6 sessions. And at the end I was like, well, goodbye. And it felt really perverse, because normally the way that role-playing game groups are supposed to go is they just sort of stop eventually. Like people, like, you could sound it just, there was something weirdly liberating about it, having effectively a short-term fling and then saying, well, goodbye everyone, I'll catch you on the flip side. And we've run some online cons, we've done some stuff. I am hugely missing going to conventions. We were booked to go to Gen Con last year. We had a stall at Gen Con for life. It was going to tie in with the release of Heart. It was going to be our year, and that didn't happen. We lost out on a lot of business, and like, thankfully we're doing okay because people keep buying role-playing games, which is lovely. But I really miss the human element. I really miss the The thing which I've missed most is the random element of a con where you meet someone you don't know. And like you'll sit down with a friend and they'll bring along a friend who's, oh, hi, and you start chatting. And that is so hard to do online. It's so hard to be in a conversation which is sort of ambient, which then develops into something brilliant, rather than, oh, I'm choosing to speak to this person for these reasons. And so, yeah, I really miss physical proximity.
Honestly,
yeah, I was gonna say same here. I just miss having all of that and having the little web of people that you don't know yet, but you will know soon. Just there, and it's not there anymore. It's all gone.
Yeah.
Side note: if you ever want to bring a con to Norway, to anywhere other than Oslo, because apparently Oslo is the only place that gets events, like, let's talk. We don't really have cons here.
I just wanted to bring it back for a sec and say that I have also been trying to play a lot more episodic games. Because I'm now a content creator online, I stream games, and I try and be very clean with it feeling like there's an end. I don't want the game to feel like that it's gonna go forever. And it just is so freeing. I really love like ticking clock games, or games where we are gonna play 12 sessions and that's it. And that's something during lockdown that I've discovered I really love, because I also have a little text document on my computer that's just a list of people's Twitter @s for people I've befriended online who I really want to play tabletop role-playing games with. And the list is quite long, and so I need to make sure I only play short little games. And I really enjoy running these like self-contained mini games so much.
Yeah, it lets you try out different mechanics, and it lets you try out games which are flawed in a way which wouldn't sustain.
It's something I've also discovered I like, because I ran long-term like epic story campaigns for a while, and then I started realizing, as satisfying as it is, there's something so much more, I don't know how to put this, almost like you said, like liberating, where if you have a short story and you think, I'm just going to pick these people, sit down, tell a complete and satisfying story, and then move on and maybe tell a different story with different people. And it's actually been something that I've moved to as well, especially with pandemic, with lockdown, because it means I get to still see different faces, do different things. And especially in terms of tabletop, it's been something that I don't want to speak for the majority, but a lot of people I know have also, in the past year, shifted more towards shorter story games than long epic campaigns.
I think it's as I'm getting older as well, is something which I've got into. Like I've moved out. I don't know how old any of you are, and I can't tell. But
we are ageless fey beings.
I am stumbling blindly towards 35, and for the last 5 years or so, I haven't had the time or the inclination to try and run a game for the same people in the same campaign in the same setting for over a year. That like your characters simply aren't going to change enough for it to be interesting. Anyway,
I am also someone who really wants stories to end, like the storytelling part of a TTRPG. If it's one, so I really like silly ones, but I also really like ones where you can feel like you've done something and it finished. And I have been in too many D&D games where it's like, we'll put this on hiatus for now. And I mean, I've even GM'd the ones where I've been like, I'm putting this on hiatus for now, and then it's never picked back up again, and then people move out of town.
Sacrifice your game upon the altar of fun.
Kill despair.
Kill it. Call up your friends now. Viewer, firstly, donate to Mind. Hugely important. Like, given the way this world is going, we are all going to go mad pretty soon. I've used Mind's services on many occasions, and I encourage you to if you need them. However, secondly, call up your friends with that campaign you were running 3 years ago and tell them you're going to ritually murder the campaign with them. And then blow it up! Blow up the world, end the game, close it off rather than having it sort of withering and dying.
And even then, what I discovered is at the end of a 4-year-long campaign, there was just too much to actually be satisfied with the ending. It felt like, having recently finally caught up to a lot of pop culture, I'm going to draw this comparison. It felt like watching the Avengers Endgame. It's like, okay, you have too many things to tie up. This thing is collapsing under its own weight. This is never going to be satisfying except for like the 3 people who are invested in this and this and this particular thing, and everyone else is going to be left going, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I now no longer run games that I don't know what the start and the end of the game will be. The end could change. Players can come in and make it a mess. But there is this, and there are a few things in between that will happen. And that's it. That's what we're going to do. I used to not do that when I ran games. I used to be like, I'll just give it a go. And then nothing makes sense and everybody's narratively dissatisfied. And yeah, lockdown has given me a crash course in episodic play, which I really enjoy.
Yeah. We should probably end this recording because time.
Yep, sure.
I hope you enjoy Honey Heist.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's never been pronounced like that before. What was
Honey
that emphasis?
Heist.
Honey Heist. Hi,
yeah.
I'm Honey Heist.
I hope
you have fun with the bears.
I hope me in the future does a good job. I like my concept. I won't say what it is in this recording because watch and find out. But yeah, donate to Mind if you can. Share this stream around where you can. Just try and help us help raise money for charity. That would be very cool. And thank you very much, Grant, for coming and chatting with us.
I've learned a lot about Norway.
And yeah, that's it. You're watching Wrong for Good, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the weekend. Goodbye, everybody.